The night I heard the word disappear, whispered in Russian across a candlelit table, I knew my past had finally caught up with me. My name is Kendra Ashford, and 3 years ago, I walked away from a life most people only dream about. Designer clothes, private jets, a husband whose face appeared on magazine covers next to words like visionary and unstoppable. I traded all of that for a studio apartment in Brooklyn and a job that paid me to be invisible. I'm a translator now, the kind nobody notices until something goes wrong. I stand in corners at fancy restaurants, wearing black, blending into shadows, listening to conversations in languages most Americans can't pronounce. My job is simple. Hear everything, say nothing, disappear when it's over. Tonight was supposed to be just another shift at La Fontaine, this insanely expensive French restaurant in Manhattan where billionaires eat gold-flake desserts and discuss deals that could topple governments. I was assigned to the private East Wing, handling translation equipment for some international business dinner. Russians, Swiss bankers, a few men from Dubai. All of them wearing suits that cost more than my rent. I stood near the corner, adjusting the sound levels on the translator headsets, when I caught a fragment of conversation from the table closest to me. Two men, both speaking Russian in low tones. One was heavy-set with gray hair slicked back. The other was younger, maybe 40, with cold eyes that never smiled even when his mouth did. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. The gray-haired man lifted his wine glass and said something that made my blood turn to ice. Он все еще думает, что это спасение. He still thinks it's salvation. The younger man chuckled, a sound like gravel scraping concrete. Подпишет и исчезнет. He'll sign, and he'll disappear. My hand froze on the equipment case. I knew enough Russian to understand exactly what they meant. Someone was walking into a trap. Someone was about to lose everything. Then the gray-haired man said a name that made the entire room tilt sideways. Volkov? Volkov. Marcus Volkov. My ex-husband. I hadn't heard that name spoken aloud in 3 years. Not since the day I signed divorce papers in a lawyer's office while Marcus sat across from me, his face carved from stone, saying nothing. Not since the night I packed 2 suitcases and left behind a penthouse overlooking Central Park. Not since I decided that loving a man like him would eventually destroy me. Marcus Volkov built his empire from nothing. Born in Moscow, raised in chaos, he taught himself coding in internet cafes and sold his first software company for $2 billion before he turned 30. By the time I met him at a charity gala 6 years ago, he was already a legend. The American tech world called him a genius. The Russian press called him a traitor for leaving Moscow. I called him the most dangerous man I'd ever loved. He was brilliant, ruthless, and completely addicted to power. When we got married, I thought I could be the one thing he valued more than his empire. I was wrong. Marcus loved me the way kings love their crowns. Beautiful, valuable, and ultimately replaceable if the kingdom demanded it. I left him after one of his business partners vanished in St. Petersburg. The man's family filed a missing persons report. The Russian authorities closed the case in 48 hours. When I asked Marcus about it, he looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Some people don't understand what power costs." That's when I knew. Staying with him meant accepting a world where people disappeared when they became inconvenient, where money erased problems, where the man I loved could justify anything if it protected his empire. So I walked away, changed my phone number, blocked his emails, rebuilt my life from scratch. And now, 3 years later, I was standing in a restaurant listening to 2 men plot his destruction. The gray-haired man continued speaking, his voice thick with satisfaction. After he signs the contract, we release the data breach. The Americans will tear him apart themselves. He'll be destroyed by his own country. The younger man raised his glass. To justice. They both laughed, that quiet, cruel sound that rich men make when they're about to ruin someone's life and call it business. I should have walked away. Marcus made his choices. He built his empire on lies and backroom deals and alliances with people who smiled while sharpening knives. He chose that life. He chose power over everything else, including me. But my hand were already reaching for my phone, scrolling through deleted contacts, finding the number I swore I'd never call again. My finger hovered over his name. 3 years of silence. 3 years of building a new life. 3 years of convincing myself I didn't know him anything. I pressed call. The phone rang once. Twice. Then his voice, deep and steady, filled my ear. Volkov. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. What was I supposed to say? How do you warn someone who once meant everything to you and now means nothing? Hello. His tone shifted, slightly annoyed. Who is this? The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Marcus, don't sign anything tonight. Whatever deal you're working on with the Russian delegation, don't do it. They're setting you up. Silence. Long and heavy. Then, so quiet I almost missed it. Kendra, would you warn your ex if you knew someone was planning to destroy them? Or would you let karma do its work? The silence on the other end of the phone stretched, so long I thought he'd hung up. Then Marcus spoke again, his voice dropping to that dangerous softness I remembered too well. The tone he used right before making decisions that changed people's lives forever. How do you know about the Russian delegation? That doesn't matter right now, I said, gripping the phone tighter. What matters is they're planning something. I heard them talking. They want you to sign that contract, and the second you do, they're going to release some kind of data breach and blame it on you. The U.S. government will come after you, not them. Where are you? Marcus, listen to me. Where are you? I could hear him moving, the sound of a door closing, voices fading in the background. He was leaving whatever meeting he was in, probably already texting his security team. La Fontaine, I said quietly. I'm working here tonight. I overheard them in the private dining room. Don't move. I'm sending someone. No, don't. The line went dead. I stare at my phone, my heart hammering against my ribs. This was a mistake. A massive, stupid mistake. I should have stayed silent. Should have let Marcus walk into whatever trap those men had prepared. He wasn't my problem anymore. But even as I thought it, I knew I couldn't have done anything differently. Despite everything, despite the divorce and the silence and the 3 years I'd spent trying to forget him, some part of me still couldn't watch him get destroyed. I slipped my phone back into my pocket and tried to focus on the equipment in front of me. The dinner was still happening. Guests were still eating, still talking, still making deals that would reshape industries. I needed to finish my job and get out of here before. Excuse me, miss. I turned around and found myself staring at 2 men in black suits. They looked like what you'd get if you ordered intimidating security from a catalog. Tall, broad-shouldered, expressionless faces, earpieces barely visible beneath carefully styled hair. Mr. Volkov would like to see you, the taller one said. I'm working, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. I can't just leave. He insists. The way he said it made it clear this wasn't a request. I glanced back at the dining room, where the Russian men were still laughing over their wine, completely unaware that their plan was already unraveling. Fine, I said. Just let me pack up my equipment. No need. Someone else will handle it. They led me through the back hallway, past the kitchen where chefs shouted in French and Spanish, past the service elevators, out a side door that opened onto a narrow alley. A black limousine idled against the curb, windows tinted so dark I couldn't see inside. The shorter security guy opened the rear door. I hesitated. Getting into that car meant stepping back into a world I'd fought so hard to escape. It meant facing Marcus again, not as the woman who loved him, but as the one who left him. Ma'am, the security guy said, his tone polite but firm. I climbed inside. The door closed behind me with a heavy thunk, sealing me into leather-scented darkness. For a moment, I couldn't see anything. Then my eyes adjusted, and I saw him sitting across from me, perfectly still, watching me with that unreadable expression I used to spend hours trying to decode. Marcus Volkov looked exactly the same. Same sharp jawline. Same dark hair styled with precision. Same gray eyes that could be warm or cold, depending on what he needed from you. He wore a black suit, white shirt, no tie. His hands rested on his knees, fingers laced together, calm as a man sitting in his own living room. Hello, Kendra, he said quietly. The limousine pulled away from the curb, gliding into Manhattan traffic. "You shouldn't have called me," Marcus said. "I know. You shouldn't be here. I know that too." He leaned forward slightly, his eyes searching my face. 3 years. Not a word. I respected that. I didn't contact you, didn't send people to check on you, didn't interfere with your life. And now you call me out of nowhere with a warning about a business deal you shouldn't even know exists. "I heard them talking," I said. "Two men at the restaurant. Russians. They were speaking about you, about a contract, about destroying you after you sign it. I couldn't just ignore that." "Why not?" His voice was soft, almost curious. "You walked away from me, Kendra. You made it very clear you wanted nothing to do with my world. So why warn me now?" I didn't have a good answer for that. Or maybe I did, but I wasn't ready to say it out loud. That despite everything, despite the fear and the anger and the relief I felt when I finally left, some part of me still cared whether he lived or died. Some part of me still remembered the man who brought me coffee in bed every morning, who listened to me talk about my day like it was the most important thing in the world, who held me after my mother's funeral and didn't say a word, just stayed there until I stopped crying. "Because it's the right thing to do," I finally said. Marcus studied me for a long moment, then sat back in his seat. "Tell me exactly what you heard." So I did, word for word, as much as I could remember. The Russian phrases, the mention of a data breach, the plan to let American authorities destroy him, the laughter, cold and satisfied, like men watching someone walk into a burning building. When I finished, Marcus was silent. His jaw tightened, the only sign that what I'd told him actually meant something. "The contract signing is scheduled for tomorrow night," he said quietly. "Private event. Only a few people know about it. Then cancel it. It's not that simple." He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, then looked at me again. "If what you heard is accurate, this isn't just about one deal. It's about people I've worked with for years. People I trusted. People who are about to betray you. Maybe." He slipped his phone back into his pocket. "Or maybe you misunderstood what you heard." "I didn't. You're not a native Russian speaker, Kendra." "I'm fluent enough to know what disappear means." The limousine turned onto a quieter street, moving away from the lights and noise of downtown Manhattan. I glanced out the window, trying to figure out where we were going. "Where are you taking me?" I asked. "Somewhere we can talk without being overheard." "Marcus, I told you what I know. There's nothing else to talk about." He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I hadn't expected. Not anger, not suspicion, fear. "If you're right," he said slowly, "then the people planning this have access to information they shouldn't have. They know my schedule. They know about the contract. They know exactly how to destroy me." He paused, which means someone close to me is feeding them information. The limousine stopped in front of a tall building I didn't recognize. Glass and steel, elegant and cold, the kind of place where people made decisions that affected millions of lives and never lost a minute of sleep over it. Marcus opened his door and stepped out, then turned back to look at me. "Come on," he said. "We have work to do." I should have refused. Should have told him to handle his own problems and let me go home to my safe, quiet, Marcus-free life. Instead, I followed him inside. What would you do if the person you divorced showed up and asked for your help against an enemy you couldn't see? The building was silent except for the hum of the elevator carrying us up. I watched the numbers climb, 20, 30, 40 floors, wondering what kind of place Marcus owned that required this much height and secrecy. The doors opened onto a private office that looked more like a war room. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, lights spreading out like a galaxy below us. But I barely noticed the view. My attention went straight to the massive table in the center of the room, covered in laptops, documents, and three people who all turned to stare at me when we walked in. "Everyone out," Marcus said. A woman with short black hair and sharp eyes glanced at me, then at Marcus. "We're in the middle of..." "Out. Now. I'll call you back in 20 minutes." They left without another word, gathering laptops and files, moving with the efficiency of people who knew better than to question him. The door clicked shut behind them, leaving us alone in that vast space. Marcus walked to the windows and stood there for a moment, hands in his pockets, looking out at the city he'd conquered. I stayed near the door, unsure whether I should sit down or keep my distance or just run while I still had the chance. Anya Volkov, he said without turning around. That's who arranged the meeting with the Russian delegation. Anya, I repeated. Your business partner? My fiancé. The word hit me like a punch to the stomach. I knew Marcus had moved on. Of course he had. 3 years was a long time. But hearing it spoken out loud, in that casual way, made something inside me twist painfully. Congratulations, I managed. Don't. He turned to face me, his expression unreadable. We're not discussing my personal life. We're discussing whether the woman I'm planning to marry is actively trying to destroy me. I forced myself to focus. This wasn't about jealousy or old feelings or the fact that Marcus had replaced me with someone who probably didn't ask inconvenient questions about missing business partners. Tell me about her, I said. Marcus moved to the table, pulling up files on one of the laptops. Anya Drogonov. She came to me 2 years ago with a proposal to expand into the European market. She had connections I needed. Family money, political influence in Eastern Europe, relationships with people who could open doors I couldn't access on my own. Russian family? Her uncle is Dmitry Dragunov. The name meant nothing to me, but the way Marcus said it made my skin prickle. Should I know him? I asked. He's an oligarch. One of the men who made fortunes when the Soviet Union collapsed, grabbing industries and resources while the government was too weak to stop them. He's been on and off various international watch lists for decades. Money laundering, extortion, political manipulation. Nothing ever proven, of course. And you got engaged to his niece. I didn't know about the connection at first. She told me her family was in finance. By the time I learned the truth, we were already in business together. He pulled up a photo on the screen. A woman with dark hair, striking features, and a smile that looked like it was carved rather than genuine. 6 months ago, she suggested I meet with a group of investors from Moscow. Said they were interested in a partnership that could double my company's value. The contract you're supposed to sign tomorrow. Yes. He zoomed in on a document, lines of dense legal text covering the screen. It's a merger agreement. On paper, it looks perfect. They provide capital and European distribution networks. I provide technology and American market access. Everyone profits. Except you heard what I heard, I said. And now you know it's a trap. Marcus closed the laptop and looked at me. I need to see the contract clause by clause. Every word, every detail, every piece of hidden language. If there's something buried in there that gives them control, I need to find it before tomorrow night. That's going to take hours. Then we better get started. He opened another laptop and gestured for me to sit down. I hesitated, then moved to the chair across from him. This was insane. 3 years of careful distance, and now I was sitting in his office, helping him dissect a business deal that could destroy him. Why do you trust me? I asked suddenly. You said it yourself. I walked away. I could be working with them. I could be part of the plan. Marcus looked at me for a long moment, and something in his expression softened. Because if you wanted to destroy me, Kendra, you had 100 chances to do it when we were married. You knew things about my business that could have ruined me. You could have gone to the press, to the authorities, to anyone. But you didn't. You just left. I left because I couldn't watch what you were becoming. I know. He opened the document on his screen. And maybe that's exactly why I trust you now. We worked in silence for the next 2 hours, scrolling through page after page of legal text. Most of it was standard corporate language, the kind of thing lawyers write to protect everyone and clarify nothing. But then, buried in Section 14, subsection C, I found something that made my stomach drop. Marcus, I said quietly, look at this. He came around to my side of the table, leaning over my shoulder to read the screen. I could feel the heat of him, smell the faint scent of his cologne, and for just a second I was back in our apartment, working late on some project while he brought me tea and kissed the top of my head. What am I looking at? He asked. I highlighted the relevant paragraph. This clause transfers ownership of your patents to a third-party holding company if certain conditions are met. The conditions are vague enough that they could be triggered almost immediately after signing. Marcus read it 3 times, his jaw tightening with each pass. That holding company, do we know who owns it? I pulled up another window, running a quick search. It took less than 5 minutes to find the answer, And when I did, I wished I hadn't. It's registered in the Cayman Islands, I said, under the name Dragonov Holdings. Marcus straightened up, his face completely blank. That was always his tell. When he showed no emotion at all, it meant he was feeling everything at once and refusing to let any of it show. She's stealing my company, he said quietly. Anya is stealing my entire company. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and his expression hardened. It's her, he said. She wants to know where I am. What are you going to tell her? He stared at the phone for a long moment, then set it down without answering. Nothing. Not yet. If she knows I'm suspicious, she'll accelerate whatever plan they have. I need time to figure out how deep this goes. Marcus, if she's working with her uncle, this isn't just about business. These are people who make problems disappear. Permanently. I know. Then what are you going to do? He looked at me, and for the first time since I'd climbed into that limousine, I saw something other than control in his eyes. I saw the man I'd married, the one who occasionally let his guard down long enough to admit he didn't have all the answers. I'm going to need your help, he said. Could you ever trust someone who betrayed you once? Or does betrayal always leave a door open for it to happen again? I should have said no. Should have told Marcus that helping him navigate a conspiracy orchestrated by his fiancée and her oligarch uncle was way beyond my job description. Should have reminded him that I walked away from this world specifically because I didn't want to spend my life looking over my shoulder, wondering which smile was real and which one was hiding a knife. Instead, I heard myself say, "What do you need?" Marcus pulled up a chair next to mine, close enough that our knees almost touched. He opened a new file on his laptop, and I saw a web of names, photos, and connecting lines that looked like something from a detective show. Anya introduced me to 7 people over the past year, he said, pointing to the faces on the screen. These 3 are the investors from Moscow. These 2 are her business associates in Switzerland. And these 2 claim to be independent consultants, but I'm starting to think they're all connected to her uncle. I studied the faces. They all had that same polished, expensive look, people who knew how to move through powerful circles without drawing attention. The kind who smiled at cameras and destroyed lives in private. If they're all working together, I said slowly, then this has been planned for a long time. They didn't just decide last week to steal your company. No, they've been positioning themselves for months, maybe longer. He clicked on another file, and a timeline appeared. Every major decision I've made in the past year, Anya was there. Every contract negotiation, every investor meeting, every expansion plan. She had access to everything. Did you tell her about your security protocols? Passwords, encryption, access codes. Marcus went very still. She lived in my house, Kendra. She had access to my personal computers, my files, my private communications. If she wanted to compromise my systems, she could have done it 100 different times. Then assume she already has. I pulled up a new window and started typing. We need to move everything to a secure server that she doesn't know about. Change every password, every access point, every... Wait. Marcus grabbed my wrist, stopping me mid-keystroke. His hand was warm against my skin, and for just a second, neither of us moved. If I start changing security protocols now, she'll know something's wrong. She'll know I'm suspicious. Then what do you want to do? Just keep pretending everything's fine until they steal everything you built? No. He let go of my wrist, but his eyes stayed locked on mine. I want to set a trap. I didn't like the sound of that. Marcus's traps usually involved risks that made normal people lose sleep for months. What kind of trap? I asked. Tomorrow night at the signing, I'm going to go through with it. I'm going to sign the contract, shake hands with the Russians, let Anya think she won. But before I do, I'm going to rewrite certain clauses. Small changes. Language that looks identical but shifts ownership back to me. By the time they realize what happened, I'll have already locked them out of my systems and frozen their access to my assets. That's insane, I said flatly. If they catch you changing the contract, they won't just walk away. These are people who make problems disappear. Marcus, you set yourself, which is why I need someone they don't know is working with me. Someone who can be in the room, watching, listening, making sure everything goes according to plan. You want me to spy on your fiancée. I want you to protect me from her. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with meanings I wasn't ready to examine. This wasn't just about business anymore. This was personal. This was Marcus admitting that the woman he'd planned to marry was actively trying to destroy him, and the only person he trusted to help him was the woman who divorced him 3 years ago. "I can't do this," I said, standing up. "This isn't my world anymore. I translate menus and dinner conversations. I don't infiltrate corporate conspiracies. You speak fluent Russian, German, and Mandarin. You're trained to listen without being noticed. You've seen how these people operate because you were married to me for 4 years. Kendra, you're the only person who can do this. Find someone else. There is no one else." He stood up too, moving closer. "Everyone in my inner circle could be compromised. Everyone I trust might already be working for them. But you have no reason to help me except that you chose to. And that makes you the only person I can count on." I wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him that this was exactly the kind of situation I'd spent 3 years trying to avoid. But looking at him now, seeing the exhaustion in his eyes, the tension in his shoulders, I realized something I'd been trying to ignore. Marcus was scared, not of losing his company, not of being betrayed, but of being completely alone in a fight where everyone around him might be the enemy. "If I do this," I said slowly, "we do it my way. No risks I'm not comfortable with. No plans you don't tell me about in advance. And the second this is over, I walk away and you don't contact me again. Ever." Something flickered across his face. Pain, maybe, or resignation. "Agreed. I mean it, Marcus. After this, we're done. Completely. I understand." He held out his hand, formal, businesslike, as if we were sealing a contract instead of stepping into something that could destroy us both. I took his hand and shook it once, firmly. "Then I'm in," I said. His phone buzzed again. This time when he looked at the screen, his expression went carefully blank. "It's Anya," he said. "She's downstairs. She wants to come up." My heart jumped in my throat. Now? She's here right now. She knows I'm working late. She probably got suspicious when I didn't answer her earlier texts. He looked at me, and I saw the calculation in his eyes, the rapid planning that had made him a billionaire before 30. "You need to hide." "What?" "No, I'm not hiding in your office like some kind of Kendra." His voice was sharp, urgent. "If she sees you here, she'll know something's wrong. She'll know I'm onto her. And if she reports back to her uncle before we're ready, this whole thing falls apart." He was right. I hated that he was right, but he was... Where? I asked. Marcus pointed to a door I hadn't noticed earlier, tucked into the corner behind a filing cabinet. "Storage room. Just for a few minutes. I'll get rid of her, and then we'll finish planning." I moved toward the door, my pulse hammering. This was a mistake. Everything about this was a mistake. But I'd already committed, already agreed to help him, and backing out now would leave him completely vulnerable. I slipped into the storage room just as I heard the elevator ding in the hallway. Marcus closed the door behind me, leaving me in darkness. Through the thin wall, I heard the office door open. Heard heels clicking on the floor. Heard a woman's voice, smooth and warm. "There you are," Anya said. "I was worried when you didn't respond to my messages." "Sorry," Marcus replied, his voice perfectly calm. "I got caught up in some contract revisions." "This late?" "You worked too hard, my love." There was a pause, and I realized with a sick feeling that they were probably kissing. Marcus, the man I'd once loved more than anything, kissing the woman who was planning to destroy him. "Come to bed," Anya said softly. "Whatever you're working on can wait until morning. I'll be there soon. I just need to finish this one section." "Marcus." Her voice sharpened slightly. "You've been distant lately. Is something wrong?" Another pause. Longer this time. "Nothing's wrong," Marcus said. "Just stressed about the signing tomorrow." "Don't be. Everything's going to be perfect. By this time tomorrow night, you'll be twice as powerful as you are today. We'll be twice as powerful." "I know. Then come home with me now. Let me help you relax." Through the wall, I heard footsteps. Movement. The sound of papers being gathered. "All right," Marcus said. "You're right. This can wait." No. No. He couldn't leave me here. We still had planning to do, details to work out, a trap to set. "Oh," Anya said suddenly. "You have 2 coffee cups on your desk." My blood turned to ice. "What?" Marcus said, his voice carefully neutral. 2 cups. Were you meeting with someone tonight? If you found evidence that someone close to you was lying, would you confront them immediately or wait to see how deep the deception goes? I pressed my back against the storage room wall, barely breathing, listening to the silence that followed Anya's question. Through the thin door, I heard Marcus laugh. Easy, casual, the sound of a man with nothing to hide. My assistant was here earlier, he said. Dropped off some files I needed. You know how I am about coffee. Can't function without it. Anya's voice was softer now, but something in her tone made my skin crawl, like she was smiling while examining him under a microscope. Your assistant. The new one? James. Jason. And yes, he's efficient. Good. You need people around you who are loyal. Especially now, with everything about to change. I heard movement again, the sound of heels clicking toward the elevator. Come on, Anya said. I have wine at home, the kind you like from that vineyard in Tuscany. You're too good to me. I know. The elevator dinged. Doors slid open. More footsteps, and then silence. I stayed frozen in the dark storage room for another 2 minutes, counting my heartbeats, making sure they were really gone. Then the door opened, and Marcus stood there, his face pale in the office lights. She's suspicious, he said quietly. I noticed. I need to go home with her. If I stay here, she'll know something's off. She'll start digging, asking questions, maybe even contacting her uncle tonight. I stepped out of the storage room, brushing dust off my clothes. So what's the plan? Marcus pulled out his phone and typed quickly. I'm sending you access codes to a secure server. Upload everything we found tonight, the contract, the holding company information, all of it. Then go home, get some sleep, and tomorrow I'll text you the details for the signing event. Marcus, we barely started planning. We don't have a strategy. We don't know what you're going to. I'll figure it out. He met my eyes, and I saw that familiar steel I'd seen 1,000 times when he was building his empire. The absolute certainty that he would win, because losing wasn't an option he allowed himself to consider. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m., the Astoria Hotel. Private ballroom on the 15th floor. Or something formal. You'll be there as a translator for the Russian delegation. They'll recognize me from the restaurant. No, they won't. You were in the corner, practically invisible. That's what you do, remember? You blend in. You listen. Tomorrow night, you'll do exactly that. I wanted to argue, but he was already moving toward the elevator, gathering his jacket, checking his phone. Marcus, I called after him. He stopped, turned. Be careful, I said. You're going home to sleep next to someone who's planning to destroy you. Don't forget that. Something crossed his face. Vulnerability, maybe, or grief for a relationship that had been alive from the beginning. I won't forget. Then he was gone, and I was alone in that massive office, surrounded by screens full of evidence that the woman he loved was his enemy. I spent the next hour uploading files to the secure server, documenting everything we'd found. The hidden clause in the contract, the shell company, the timeline of Anya's involvement in Marcus's business. By the time I finished, my eyes were burning and my hands were shaking from too much coffee and not enough sleep. I took a cab back to Brooklyn, climbed the 5 flights to my apartment, and collapsed on my bed without even taking off my shoes. But I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Marcus's face when Anya called him my love. Saw the way he'd kissed her, played the part of the devoted fiancé, all while knowing she was planning to steal everything he'd built. How did you do that? How did you smile at someone who was betraying you? How did you lie next to them at night and pretend everything was fine? My phone buzzed with a text message. Marcus, are you safe? I stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed back. Me, yes. Are you? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Marcus, define safe. Me, alive. Not currently being murdered by your fiancé. Marcus, then yes. For now. Marcus, thank you. For tonight. For warning me. For not walking away when you had every reason to. I didn't know what to say to that. So I just sent back. Me. See you tomorrow. But I didn't sleep. Instead, I lay there in the dark, thinking about the boy Marcus used to be before he became a billionaire. The one who told me about growing up in Moscow, sharing a 2-room apartment with his mother and grandmother. The one who taught himself English by watching American movies with subtitles. The one who built his first computer from scavenged parts and learned to code because it was the only escape he had from poverty. Somewhere along the way, that boy had turned into someone who made alliances with dangerous people and justified it as necessary for survival. Someone who built an empire so tall he couldn't see the ground anymore. And now that empire was about to collapse, unless I could help him see the trap before it closed around him. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Marcus. Marcus, I'm looking at the contract again. There's another clause I missed. Section 22. It's worse than we thought. I sat up, suddenly wide awake. Me, how much worse? Marcus, the data breach they're planning isn't just about destroying my reputation. It's about framing me for espionage, selling technology secrets to foreign governments. If this works, I won't just lose my company. I'll go to prison. My hands went cold. Me, can you prove it's a setup? Marcus, not without exposing that I know about their plan. And if I do that now, they'll just find another way to destroy me. One I won't see coming. I stared at the screen, my mind racing through possibilities. This wasn't just corporate theft anymore. This was a calculated plot to erase Marcus completely, financially, legally, personally. And Anya had been planning it from the moment she walked into his life 2 years ago. Me, tomorrow night, when you sign the contract, how many people will be in the room? Marcus, 8. The 3 Russian investors. Anya, 2 lawyers. A notary. And me, 9. You forgot about me. Marcus, you'll be standing in the corner with the translation equipment. They won't even notice you're there. Me, exactly. Which means I can record everything. Every word, every gesture, every moment they think they're winning. If this goes wrong, at least we'll have evidence. There was a long pause before his next message. Marcus, if this goes wrong, evidence won't save us. These people don't lose in court. They win before it ever gets that far. Me, then we don't let it go wrong. Marcus, Kendra, if you're in that room tomorrow night and something happens, if they realize you're working with me, they won't just threaten you. They'll make you disappear, the same way they made my business partner disappear in St. Petersburg. I thought about that night 3 years ago when I'd asked Marcus about the missing man. The way his face had gone blank. The way he'd said, some people don't understand what power costs. Back then, I thought he was justifying someone else's actions. Now I wondered if he'd been warning me about what he was capable of becoming. Me, I'm not scared of them. Marcus, you should be. Me, maybe. But I'm more scared of what happens if we do nothing. Another long pause. Marcus, get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. Me, you too. Marcus, I can't. Every time I close my eyes, I see her face. And I wonder how I missed it. How I didn't see that she was using me from the beginning. I understood that feeling. The betrayal that made you question everything. Every conversation, every touch, every moment you'd thought was real. Me, you didn't miss it because you're stupid. You missed it because she's good at lying. There's a difference. Marcus, is there? Me, yes. One makes you human. The other makes you her. No response came after that. I set my phone on the nightstand and finally let myself fall asleep. I dreamed about the restaurant, about standing in a corner, invisible, while men in expensive suits talked about destruction like it was just another business transaction. In the dream, I tried to speak, tried to warn Marcus, but no sound came out. And when I looked down, I realized I was fading, becoming transparent, disappearing like all the other people who'd gotten in these men's way. I woke up at noon, drenched in sweat, my heart racing. The signing was in 7 hours. I spent the afternoon preparing, showered, dried my hair straight, put on makeup that made me look professional and forgettable. I'd learned that trick working as a translator, how to be present but invisible, noticed but not remembered. From the back of my closet, I pulled out a black dress I'd bought for charity galas when I was married to Marcus. Simple, elegant, expensive enough to fit in at the Astoria Hotel, but not so flashy that anyone would give me a second look. I packed my translation equipment in a small black case, along with a backup recording device hidden in a compact that looked like regular makeup. If things went wrong, if Marcus's trap failed, I wanted proof of what happened in that room. At 5:30, my phone buzzed. Marcus, Car's outside. Driver knows where to take you. Me. See you soon. Marcus, Kendra. Whatever happens tonight, whatever you see or hear, don't react. Don't let them know you understand what's really happening. Your safety depends on being invisible. Me. I know how to do my job. Marcus. I know you do. That's why you're the only person I trust. I grabbed my bag and headed downstairs. A black sedan waited at the curb, driver standing by the rear door. He nodded once when he saw me, opened the door, said nothing. The drive to the Astoria Hotel took 20 minutes through evening traffic. I watched the city slide past my window, taxis, pedestrians, street vendors closing up their carts for the night. Normal people living normal lives, completely unaware that 15 floors above them, a billionaire was about to walk into a trap that could destroy him. The hotel was all marble and gold, the kind of place where every surface gleamed and every staff member looked like they'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. The driver led me to a private elevator that required a key card to operate. 15th floor, he said, handing me the card. Ballroom C, Mr. Volkov, is already inside. The elevator doors closed, sealing me in with my reflection. I looked calm, professional, ready. Inside, my heart was hammering so hard I could feel in my throat. The elevator climbed. 10 floors. 12. 14. 15. The doors opened onto a hallway carpeted in deep burgundy. Classical music played softly from hidden speakers. At the end of the hall, double doors stood open, revealing a glimpse of crystal chandeliers and white tablecloths. I walked toward the light, carrying my equipment case, playing my role. Just before I reached the ballroom, a hand grabbed my arm and pulled me into a side alcove. Marcus. He looked different in his tuxedo. Older, harder, like he'd aged years in the hour since I'd last seen him. His eyes scanned my face with an intensity that made me forget how to breathe. Last chance, he said quietly. You can still walk away. I'll tell them the translator canceled. I'll figure something else out. But once you walk through those doors, there's no going back. I'm not walking away. Kendra, I'm not, I said firmly. We're doing this. Together. The way we should have done everything from the beginning. Something shifted in his expression. For just a second, the mask cracked, and I saw the man underneath, scared, desperate, grateful. Then he stepped back, adjusting his cufflinks, becoming Marcus Volkov, the billionaire again. Stay close to the translation equipment, he said. Don't make eye contact with anyone. Don't speak unless someone asks you a direct question. And whatever happens, don't try to protect me. Just record everything and get out if things go wrong. Marcus, promise me. I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized that despite everything, the divorce, the betrayal, the 3 years of silence, I would still do anything to keep him safe. I promessa, elite. He nodded once, then walked back toward the ballroom. I waited 30 seconds, composed myself, and followed. The room was smaller than I expected. Intimate. One long table in the center, already set with wine glasses and leather folders. 6 people stood in clusters, talking in low voices. I recognized the 2 Russian men from the restaurant immediately. The gray-haired one saw me enter, and his eyes flickered over me once, dismissing me as irrelevant. Good. I moved to the corner where the translation equipment was set up, opened my case, started adjusting microphones and headsets, becoming invisible. Then she walked in. Anya Dragunov was more beautiful in person than in photographs. Dark hair, swept up in an elegant twist, red dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, diamond earrings that caught the light every time she moved. She saw Marcus across the room and smiled. Warm, genuine, the smile of a woman who loved him, or the smile of a woman who'd already won. She crossed him, stood on her toes, kissed him softly. His hand settled on her waist, familiar, comfortable. I focused on my equipment, jaw clenched so tight my teeth ached. Ladies and gentlemen, a man's voice announced. Shall we begin? Everyone moved toward the table. Marcus and Anya sat side by side, the Russians across from them, lawyers flanking both sides like guards at a border crossing. I put on my headset, activated the translation system, and pressed record on the hidden device in my compact. The gray-haired Russian raised his wine glass. To new partnerships, he said in Russian. "An old debt's finally paid." He was looking directly at Anya when he said it, and she smiled back like they shared a secret the rest of the room wasn't meant to understand. What would you do if you realized the trap was bigger than anyone thought, and you were standing right in the middle of it? The contract sat in the center of the table like a coiled snake waiting to strike. I watched through my translator headset as the gray-haired Russian, his name was Mikhail Sokolov, slid the leather folder toward Marcus. His fingers were thick, heavy with gold rings that caught the chandelier light. Next to him sat the younger man, Alexei, whose cold eyes had made my skin crawl at the restaurant. Marcus reached for the folder, but Anya's hand covered his first. "Let me," she said softly, her voice dripping with affection. "I want to make sure everything is perfect for you, my love." She opened the folder, scanning the pages with practiced efficiency. I knew what she was looking for, making sure the poison clauses were still intact, still hidden deep in the legal language where Marcus wouldn't notice until it was too late. "Everything looks good," she said, sliding it toward him. "Just like we discussed." Marcus picked up the pen. I held my breath. Then he set it down again. "Actually," he said calmly, "I'd like my legal team to review one more time. Standard procedure for contracts of this size." Mikhail's smile tightened. "Mr. Volkov, we've been through 7 revisions. Your lawyers have approved every word. I understand, but humor me. It's a significant commitment." Anya touched his arm, her expression concerned. "Marcus, darling, these gentlemen flew in from Moscow specifically for tonight. We've been planning this for months. Everything is in order." "Then one more review won't change anything," Marcus said. His voice was pleasant, reasonable, but I caught the steel underneath. Alexei leaned forward, his English heavily accented but clear. "Perhaps Mr. Volkov is having second thoughts about our partnership." "Not at all," Marcus replied. "I'm simply being thorough." The tension in the room shifted. I kept my eyes on the translation equipment, adjusting levels that didn't need adjusting, but I could feel the weight of what was happening. Marcus was stalling, buying time. But for what? Mikhail exchanged a glance with Alexei, then with Anya. Something unspoken passed between them, a communication I couldn't quite read. "Very well," Mikhail said finally. "How long will this review take?" "An hour. Maybe 2. We have dinner reservations at 9. Anya said, her voice strained now. "Marcus, please. This is embarrassing." "Business comes before dinner," Marcus said. He stood up, pulling out his phone. "I'll call my team now." That's when I heard it. Anya speaking in Russian, so softly I almost missed it through my headset. "Он знает то." He knows. My blood went cold. Mikhail's response was equally quiet. "Невозможно точка. Impossible." But Anya's face had changed. The warmth was gone, replaced by something calculating and dangerous. She studied Marcus like a chess player realizing her opponent had seen 5 moves ahead. "Marcus," she said, switching back to English. "Put the phone away." "Excuse me." I said put it away. Her voice was different now. Harder. The loving fiancé had vanished, leaving someone I didn't recognize. "We both know you're not calling your legal team." Marcus's hand tightened around his phone. "Anya, what are you? How long have you known?" She interrupted. The room went deadly silent. One of the lawyers started to stand, but Alexei made a small gesture and the man sat back down. I realized then that the lawyers weren't neutral. They were part of this. Everyone at that table, except Marcus, was part of the trap. "Known what?" Marcus asked, his voice carefully neutral. Anya stood up, smoothing her red dress. "Don't insult my intelligence. Someone warned you. Someone told you about the contract, about what would happen after you signed." Her eyes swept the room, landing on each person. "The question is who?" My heart was hammering so hard I thought everyone could hear it. I kept my head down, hands busy with equipment, praying she wouldn't look at me. "You're being paranoid," Marcus said. "Am I?" Anya walked around the table, her heels clicking on the marble floor. "Then sign it. Right now. Prove me wrong." Marcus didn't move. "That's what I thought." Anya pulled out her own phone, typed something quickly. "My uncle is very disappointed. He gave you a chance to join us willingly, to be part of something bigger than your little American tech company. But you chose to be difficult." "Your uncle," Marcus repeated slowly. Dmitry Dragunov, the man who's been stealing technology patents for 20 years. The man who makes people disappear when they refuse to cooperate. Anya Smunyev, I see you've done your research. I saw what you did to Viktor Petrov in St. Petersburg. The name hung in the air like smoke. Viktor Petrov, Marcus's business partner who'd vanished 3 years ago. The disappearance that had made me leave Marcus because I couldn't stand being married to someone involved in that world. But now I understood. Marcus hadn't been part of Victor's disappearance. He'd been investigating it. Victor was weak, Anya said dismissively. He discovered my uncle's operations and threatened to expose them. We couldn't allow that. So you killed him. We protected our interests. She tilted her head, studying Marcus. Just like we're protecting them now. You have 2 choices, Marcus. Sign the contract and accept that your company now belongs to us. Or refuse and face the consequences. What consequences? Marcus asked quietly. Mikhail stood up, buttoning his jacket. The data breach we planned for after the signing? It's already been uploaded to your servers. Right now, evidence is being created that shows you've been selling classified technology to foreign governments. By morning, the FBI will have everything they need to arrest you. Unless you cooperate. I felt the walls closing in. This wasn't just a trap. It was a cage they'd built around Marcus months ago, and they were closing the door whether he signed or not. Marcus looked at Anya, really looked at her, and I saw something break behind his eyes. You never loved me, he said. No, she replied. But you made it so easy to pretend. And that's when everything went completely wrong. What would you do if you discovered that everyone you trusted had been lying to you from the beginning? The door to the ballroom burst open. 6 men in dark suits flooded in, moving with military precision. For a terrifying second, I thought they were Anya's people, more enforcers to make sure Marcus couldn't escape. Then I saw the badges clipped to their belts. FBI. Nobody move, the lead agent commanded. He was tall, black, with the kind of presence that made everyone in the room freeze instantly. Marcus Volkov, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit espionage and theft of classified government technology. Marcus didn't flinch. On whose evidence? Evidence we received an hour ago from an anonymous source. The agent pulled out handcuffs. Turn around, hands behind your back. Anya stepped away from Marcus, her expression perfectly shocked. Oh my God. Marcus, what did you do? The performance was flawless. Her fiancé discovering her always terrible secrets. If I hadn't known the truth, I would have believed her completely. This is a setup, Marcus said calmly. The evidence you received is fabricated. Check the metadata on those files. Check the upload timestamps. We'll check everything, the agent said. Downtown. Let's go. As they moved toward Marcus, I made a decision that would either save him or destroy us both. Wait, I said. Every head in the room turned toward me. The invisible translator suddenly visible. The lead agent frowned. Who are you? Kendra Ashford. I'm the translator for this meeting. I reached into my equipment case, pulled out the hidden recording device. And I have evidence that proves Mr. Volkov is innocent. Anya's face went pale. What are you talking about? I recorded everything, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. The entire conversation, including the part where Ms. Dragunov admitted to framing Mr. Volkov for crimes he didn't commit. Mikhail moved toward me, but 2 FBI agents blocked his path. Give me that device, the lead agent said, holding out his hand. I handed it over, praying the recording had captured everything clearly. The agent pulled out a small tablet, connected the device, and hit play. Anya's voice filled the room, crystal clear. My uncle is very disappointed. He gave you a chance to join us willingly. The agent's expression shifted as he listened. When the recording reached the part about Viktor Petrov's murder, he stopped it and looked at Anya with new eyes. Anya Dragunov, he said, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted corporate espionage, and he glanced at his tablet. We'll be adding accessory to murder once we coordinate with international authorities. This is ridiculous, Anya snapped. That recording is inadmissible. She made it without consent. Actually, Marcus interrupted quietly. New York is a one-party consent state for recordings. As long as one person in the conversation knows it's being recorded. It's perfectly legal. And Ms. Ashford was hired specifically to record this meeting for translation purposes. The agent smiled slightly. Looks like your lawyer was right, Volkov. Though next time, maybe lead with the evidence instead of letting us walk in here, ready to arrest you. I needed to be sure the real criminals revealed themselves first, Marcus said. If I'd come to you earlier, they would have destroyed the evidence and disappeared. Smart. The agent nodded to his team. Take Dragunov and her associates into custody. And someone call the State Department. We're going to need help with the international aspects of this case. I watched as they handcuffed Anya. She looked at Marcus one last time, her beautiful face twisted with rage. You think you've won? She hissed. My uncle has resources you can't imagine. You'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, waiting for. Save it for your lawyer, the agent said, pulling her toward the door. Mikhail and Alexei went quietly, their faces blank masks. The lawyers tried to protest their innocence, claiming they hadn't known about the conspiracy, but nobody was listening. Within 10 minutes, the ballroom was empty except for me, Marcus, and 2 agents taking our statements. When they finally left, promising to be in touch with more questions, Marcus and I stood alone in that vast room. The contract still sat on the table, and signed, worthless now. You saved my life, Marcus said quietly. You saved mine first. 3 years ago, when you let me go instead of trying to keep me trapped in your world. I picked up my equipment case. Now we're even. Kendra, wait. I stopped but didn't turn around. I need to tell you something, he said. About Viktor Petrov. About why I didn't tell you the truth back then. Marcus, it's over. You don't owe me. I was investigating Dragunov's network, he continued. Viktor had discovered evidence of their operations and came to me for help. I tried to protect him, tried to get him out of Russia safely. But they got to him first. His voice cracked slightly. When you asked me about his disappearance, I couldn't tell you the truth. Because if Dragunov knew I was investigating, they would have come after you too. I turned around slowly. You let me think you were involved in his murder. I'll let you think I was a monster so you'd leave. So you'd be safe. He met my eyes. I loved you enough to let you hate me, Kendra. Because hating me meant you'd stay away from the danger. The words hit me like a physical blow. All this time, I believed Marcus had chosen his empire over me. But he'd chosen my safety over everything, including my love. You should have told me, I whispered. Would you have left if I had? I wanted to say yes, but we both knew the answer was no. Marcus crossed the room until he stood right in front of me, close enough that I could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of 3 years spent fighting enemies I'd never known existed. I can't ask you to come back, he said softly. I can't ask you to live in this world again, to spend your life wondering who's lying and who's trying to destroy us. But I need you to know that letting you go was the hardest thing I've ever done. And if I could go back, I wouldn't change it. Because you're alive. You're safe. And that matters more than anything else. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the truth written in every line of his face. He'd sacrificed everything. Our marriage, my trust, his own happiness, to keep me safe from people like Anya Dragunov. What happens now? I asked. Now I rebuild. Clean out every connection Dragunov made in my company. Make sure no one else can get close enough to destroy what I've built. He smiled sadly. And you go back to your life. Your safe, quiet life where you translate dinner conversations and don't have to watch your back. Is that what you want? What I want doesn't matter. It matters to me. The air between us shifted, charged with 3 years of unspoken truths and might-have-beens. Then my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Unknown. You think this is over? You have no idea what you've started. Dmitry Dragunov doesn't forgive. He doesn't forget. And he's coming for both of you. I showed Marcus the screen. His expression hardened. Go home. Pack a bag. I'm sending security to your apartment within the hour. Marcus. They're not done, Kendra. Anya was just one piece. The network is bigger than we thought, and now we've exposed ourselves as threats. He gripped my shoulders. Please, let me protect you this time. Let me do what I should have done 3 years ago. Keep you safe no matter what it costs. I wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him I could take care of myself. But the truth was, I'd stepped into his world tonight. And in that world, people who became threats didn't just lose their companies. They disappeared. If the person you loved asked you to run away and hide, would you trust them to protect you? Or would you stand and fight beside them? Marcus's security team arrived at my apartment at 2 in the morning. 2 women, both professionals who looked like they could break someone in half without blinking. They swept my place for bugs, checked every window lock, and then told me to pack enough clothes for a week. Where am I going? I asked. The taller one, whose name was Jordan, just said, somewhere safe. 20 minutes later, I was in another black sedan, watching Brooklyn disappear behind me. We drove for over an hour, heading north into areas where houses spread out and privacy meant acres instead of walls. Finally, we turned onto a private road that wound through dense trees before opening onto a massive estate. The house was more like a fortress. Stone walls, sophisticated security cameras, guards stationed at intervals I could see, and probably more I couldn't. Marcus stood on the front steps, still wearing his tuxedo from the signing, looking like he hadn't slept. "This is one of my safe houses," he said as I climbed out of the car. "Dragunov doesn't know it exists. His network can't touch you here. How long do I have to stay?" "As long as it takes to dismantle his organization." He led me inside, through halls filled with expensive furniture covered in white sheets, upstairs that echoed with our footsteps. "I've got teams working on it now. Freezing accounts, exposing connections, providing evidence to law enforcement in 6 different countries. But these things take time." He opened a door to a bedroom that was bigger than my entire apartment. "You'll be safe here. I promise." I set down my bag, suddenly exhausted. "What about you?" "I'll be working." Dragunov made a mistake when he sent Anya after me. He exposed his network, showed his methods. Now I know how he operates, and I'm going to take him apart piece by piece. "Marcus." I caught his arm as he turned to leave. "You can't do this alone. You need people you trust." "I have people I trust." "Name one who isn't standing in this room right now." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "My head of security, my lawyer, and you." That's 3 people against an organization that spans continents. I've built empires with less. I wanted to shake him. Wanted to make him understand that being brilliant and ruthless wouldn't be enough this time. But I also knew that look in his eyes, the absolute certainty that he would win because failure meant death. "Get some rest," he said softly. "We'll talk more in the morning." He left, closing the door behind him. I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat by the window, watching guards patrol the grounds, thinking about how quickly my life had spiraled from quiet translating work to hiding in a billionaire's fortress while Russian criminals planned their revenge. My phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. "Unknown. Tell Marcus his mother says hello. She's enjoying her stay in our guest house outside Moscow. Such a lovely woman. It would be unfortunate if anything happened to her." My hands went numb. I ran downstairs, following voices until I found Marcus in an office, surrounded by laptops and phones and papers spread across every surface. He looked up when I burst in. "They have your mother," I said, showing him the text. His face went completely white. "That's impossible. She's in a secure facility in Switzerland. 24-hour protection, vetted guards." His phone rang. He answered it, listened for 30 seconds, then slowly set it down. "She's gone," he said, his voice hollow. "They took her 4 hours ago. Killed 3 guards. Left no trace." I watched him process the information, saw the moment when the brilliant strategist realized he'd been outmaneuvered. Dragunov hadn't just targeted Marcus's company. He'd targeted the one person Marcus would sacrifice everything to protect. "What do they want?" I asked. Marcus pulled up an email on his laptop. "They wanted to transfer ownership of my company to them. They want every patent, every piece of proprietary technology, every asset I control. And they want it done within 48 hours, or my mother dies." "You can't give them that." "I can't let her die." "Marcus, if you give them everything, they'll kill her anyway. And then they'll kill you. And probably me too, since I'm a witness." "Then what do you suggest?" His voice was sharp, desperate. "Tell me, Kendra, how do I save my mother without giving them what they want?" I thought about the recording device I'd used at the signing, about how being invisible had given me access to information no one expected me to hear. About how the quiet translator had brought down Anya's entire scheme. "We do what they don't expect," I said slowly. "We go to Moscow." "That's insane. That's walking straight into their headquarters." "Exactly. They're expecting you to negotiate from here, to try using law enforcement or hired security to rescue your mother. They're not expecting you to show up on their doorstep and take her back yourself." Marcus stared at me. "You're serious?" "I speak fluent Russian. You know how Dragonov's network operates. Together, we can get in, find her mother, and get out before they realize what's happening. And if we fail, then we fail together." I met his eyes. "3 years ago, you protected me by pushing me away. Maybe this time, we protect each other by staying together." He was quiet for a long time, weighing options, calculating risks. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. "Prepare the jet," he said. "We're going to Moscow." After he hung up, he looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Fear, maybe, or gratitude, or something deeper that neither of us was ready to name. "If we do this," he said quietly, "if we go into Dragonov's territory, there's a good chance we don't come back. You understand that?" "I understand." "Then why are you willing to risk everything?" I thought about that question. About the woman I'd been 3 years ago, running from danger. About the woman I'd become, standing in a corner recording conspiracies. About the moment I decided to call Marcus and warn him, even though it meant pulling myself back into a world I'd sworn to leave behind. "Because some people are worth fighting for," I said, "even when the fight seems impossible." Marcus crossed the room and pulled me into his arms. I let myself lean into him, feeling his heart racing against mine, both of us terrified and determined and maybe a little bit crazy. "We leave in 3 hours, he said against my hair. "Pack light. And Kendra, thank you for not running when you had every reason to. Thank you for finally letting me stay. Would you fly into enemy territory to save someone's family, knowing you might never make it home?" Moscow in October was cold and gray and beautiful in a way that made my chest ache. We landed at a private airfield outside the city, where Marcus had arranged for a car and driver he swore he could trust. "He's been with my family since I was a kid," Marcus explained as we climbed into an unmarked sedan. "He helped my mother and me leave Russia 20 years ago. If anyone can get us where we need to go without alerting Dragonov's network, it's him." The driver, a man named Pyotr with white hair and kind eyes, nodded at me in the rearview mirror. "Welcome to Moscow, Mrs. Volkov." "We're not," I started, but Marcus touched my hand, stopping me. "Safer if people think we're still married," he murmured. "Questions lead to attention. Attention leads to Dragonov finding us before we're ready." We drove through streets I'd only seen in movies, past architectural wonders and Soviet-era buildings, heading toward the outskirts where the city gave way to countryside. Marcus had spent the entire flight working his contacts, tracking down information about where Dragonov might be holding his mother. "He has 3 properties around Moscow," Marcus said, studying maps on his tablet. 2 are known to authorities, legitimate businesses he uses as fronts. But the 3rd is buried under shell companies and false names. "That's where she'll be." "How would he know?" "Because that's where he took Viktor Petrov before he disappeared." Marcus's voice was tight. "I couldn't save Viktor, but I'm going to save my mother." The 3rd property turned out to be an old industrial complex about 40 miles outside Moscow. Abandoned factories, warehouses with broken windows, the kind of place where screams wouldn't carry and bodies could disappear without anyone noticing. Pyotr parked a mile away, hidden in a grove of trees. "I will wait here," he said. "If you're not back in 2 hours, I drive away and tell no one I saw you." "Understood." Marcus nodded. We got out of the car, both of us dressed in dark clothes, carrying nothing that would identify us if we were caught. The complex was surrounded by a chain-link fence, but sections had rusted through, leaving gaps big enough to slip through. We moved silently, staying low, avoiding the main buildings where lights glowed in upper windows. "There," Marcus whispered, pointing to a smaller building at the back of the complex. "That's where they'd keep someone. Close enough to monitor, far enough from the main operations that guards wouldn't hear anything they shouldn't." We approached carefully. 2 guards stood outside, smoking cigarettes, speaking in Russian about a football match. I listened, waiting for them to mention anything useful, but they were just hired muscle, bored and cold, and waiting for their shift to end. Marcus pulled something from his pocket, a small device that looked like a garage door opener. He pressed it, and the lights in the main building flickered once, twice, then went dark. "Emergency backup will kick in 60 seconds, he said. "That's when they'll check the main generator. We have maybe 2 minutes before those guards get called away." Sure enough, a radio crackled, and one of the guards cursed. They both headed toward the main building, leaving the door unprotected. We ran. Inside, the building was dark and smelled like rust and decay. Marcus pulled out a small flashlight, keeping the beam low as we moved through hallways lined with empty rooms. Then I heard it, a voice speaking Russian, elderly and tired, praying softly. Marcus's mother. We found her in a room at the end of the hall, locked behind a door that Marcus picked with tools I didn't ask about. When the door swung open, I saw a woman in her 70s, thin and frightened but unharmed, sitting on a cot in the corner. "Mana Marcus greted." "Marcus." She struggled to stand, disbelieving. "What are you doing here?" "They said, they told me if you came they would kill you. We're leaving. All of us. Now." He helped her up, wrapping his jacket around her shoulders. She looked at me, confused. "Kendra, is it you?" "Hi, Mama Elena," I said softly. We'd always gone along, back when I was married to Marcus. She'd never understood why I left, and I'd never been able to explain. "Come on," Marcus said urgently. "We don't have much time." We made it halfway back through the hallway before we heard voices. Men shouting, footsteps running, lights flooding on throughout the building. "They know we're here," I said. Marcus pulled us into a side room, barricading the door with a heavy desk. "There's another exit. Through the back. We just need to." The door exploded inward. Dmitry Dragunov stood there, flanked by 4 armed men. He was older than I expected, maybe 65, with silver hair and the kind of face that had probably been handsome once before cruelty hardened it into something ugly. "Marcus Volkov," he said in accented English. "You always were a foolish boy, coming here, thinking you could take what's mine. She's my mother, not your property. Everything I take becomes my property." Dragunov stepped into the room, his men following. "You should have given me your company when I asked nicely. Now, I'll take it anyway, and you'll watch your mother die first." He raised his hand, and I knew, absolutely knew, that in the next second someone was going to pull a trigger and everything would be over. That's when Elena Volkov started speaking. Not in English, not in the careful, measured tones she'd always used around me, but in rapid Russian, her voice suddenly strong and clear and absolutely fearless. I caught fragments, words about witnesses, about recordings, about evidence already delivered to the FSB and Interpol. Dragunov's face went pale. "You're lying." "Am I?" Marcus pulled out his phone, showing a screen I couldn't see. "Everything you've done, every person you've killed, every company you've stolen. It's all documented and in the hands of people you can't threaten or buy, including the evidence that you murdered Viktor Petrov. Proof that will be released if anything happens to any of us." I added, my Russian more accented than Marcus's, but clear enough. "You touch us, you destroy yourself." For a long moment, Dragunov stood frozen. I could see him calculating, weighing options, realizing that the trap he'd set had become a cage around himself. "You think this saves you?" he said finally. "You think evidence matters? I have survived 40 years by being smarter than people like you. Then be smart now." Marcus said, "Let's walk out of here. Disappear like you've made so many others disappear. Because if you don't, everything you've built will collapse within hours." The standoff lasted forever and no time at all. Then Dragunov lowered his hand. "Go. But understand this, Volkov, this isn't mercy. It's strategy. One day, when you've forgotten to look over your shoulder, when you think you're safe, I will collect what you owe me." "I'll be waiting," Marcus said. We walked out, the 3 of us, past guards who didn't move to stop us, out of the building, across the complex, through the gap in the fence. We didn't run. We walked steady and calm, as if we just finished a business meeting instead of narrowly avoiding execution. Pyotr was still waiting. He drove us back to the airfield without speaking, understanding somehow that words would break whatever spell was keeping us alive. On the plane back to New York, Elena held my hand and said, "Thank you for bringing my son back to me." Both times. I didn't understand until Marcus explained later. "When you left me 3 years ago, I called her, told her everything about Victor, about the investigation, about pushing you away to keep you safe. She said I was an idiot, said that love meant trusting someone enough to face danger together, not protecting them by breaking their heart." He smiled sadly. "Took me 3 years to understand she was right. And now," I asked, "now I'm asking you to stay. Not because I need protection or translation services, but because I don't want to face whatever comes next without you." I looked at him, this man who'd sacrificed everything for my safety, who'd let me believe he was a monster rather than risk my life, who'd flown into enemy territory because I said we should do it together. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. And for the first time in 3 years, I meant it. If someone proved they'd do anything to protect you, could you learn to trust them again? Or does broken trust stay broken forever? 6 months after Moscow, I moved back into the penthouse overlooking Central Park. Not as Marcus's wife. Not yet. But as his partner in every way that mattered, business, life, the constant vigilance required to stay ahead of people who wanted to destroy us. Dragunov kept his word about disappearing. His network collapsed under the weight of evidence Marcus had carefully compiled over years. Anya pleaded guilty to avoid trial, accepting a 20-year sentence in exchange for testimony that brought down 3 more oligarchs and exposed corruption in 6 countries. Marcus's company not only survived, but expanded. Turned out that being the man who took down an international criminal network was good for business. Investors who'd been skeptical suddenly wanted in. Tech journals wrote features about his integrity. He became the face of ethical entrepreneurship, which would have been funny if it wasn't so true. Because Marcus really had changed. He'd learned what I tried to tell him 3 years ago, that power without principle eventually destroys you from the inside. We were having breakfast one morning when he showed me something on his laptop. A news article about La Fontaine, the restaurant where I'd first overheard the conspiracy. "They're closing," he said. Apparently, their private dining rooms were being used for all kinds of illegal deals. The owners claim they didn't know, but authorities aren't buying it.
I thought about that night, standing in the corner with my translation equipment, hearing words that would change everything. If I'd been assigned to a different room, if the Russian men had spoken quieter, if I'd chosen not to call Marcus, how different would everything be? Regrets. Marcus asked, reading my expression. About saving you? Never. I poured more coffee. About getting pulled back into this world? Sometimes. Want to leave again? I considered the question seriously. Part of me missed the simplicity of my Brooklyn apartment, the anonymity of being just another translator, the safety of invisibility. But I learned something important in the past 6 months. Silence wasn't safety. It was just another kind of prison. "No," I said. "I want to stay. But on one condition." "Name it." "We do this differently than before. No more secrets. No more protecting each other by lying. If we're building something together, we build it on truth, even when the truth is dangerous." Marcus reached across the table, taking my hand. "Deal. Though I reserve the right to still worry about your safety obsessively. As long as you don't let that worry turn into control. I promise." We sat there in comfortable silence, watching the city wake up below us, and I realized something. 3 years ago, I'd left because I couldn't see a future with Marcus that didn't involve compromising who I was. Now I couldn't imagine a future without him. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. My whole body tensed, remembering the last time unknown numbers had sent me threats. But when I opened it, I found something different. "Unknown, you don't know me, but I know what you did in Moscow. My father worked for Dragunov. He disappeared 5 years ago. The evidence you helped expose finally gave us answers about what happened to him. Thank you for being brave enough to listen and speak up." I showed Marcus the message. He read it, then pulled up a list on his laptop. Names, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Victims, he explained. People who disappeared because of Dragunov's network. Every day, we get messages like this. Families who finally have closure. People who can stop wondering and start grieving. He looked at me. That's because of you. Because you heard something and chose to act. We acted. I corrected. Together. Together, he agreed. That night, we went back to La Fontaine one last time before it closed. The same private dining room. The same corner where I'd stood 6 months ago and changed both our lives. Feels different now, I said, looking around the empty space. Because it is different. We're different. Better different. Stronger different. Marcus pulled me close. 3 years ago, I thought protecting you meant pushing you away. Now I know it means trusting you enough to face danger beside me. That's the kind of strength that lasts. We left the restaurant and walked through Manhattan, past buildings where people made decisions and broke hearts and built empires. Somewhere in those towers, someone was probably having the conversation I'd overheard 6 months ago. Whispers about betrayal, plans for destruction, words that would change someone's life if the right person happened to be listening. But tonight,